The morning sun painted golden streaks across the hospital windows as Prince William stood quietly in the corridor, his hands clasped behind his back. The familiar scent of antiseptic filled the air, but today it carried something different. Hope mixed with nervous energy. Princess Kate walked beside him, her hand gently resting on his arm, offering the silent support that had become their trademark over the years. They had arrived at the children's hospital unannounced, a decision that surprised even their security team. This wasn't part of any official schedule or carefully planned royal engagement. Instead, it was something much more personal, a response to a letter that had arrived at Kensington Palace 3 weeks earlier. 8-year-old Emma Thompson had written to them in her careful, shaky handwriting. She had been battling leukemia for 2 years, and her greatest wish wasn't for toys or treats, but simply to meet the prince and princess she had seen on television. Her mother had helped her send the letter, never expecting a response from 2 of the world's most recognizable people. But the letter had found its way to Kate's personal assistant, who placed it on top of the daily correspondence. When Kate read Emma's words about wanting to be brave like a real princess, tears had immediately filled her eyes. She had shown it to William that evening over dinner, and without hesitation they both knew what they had to do. Now, as they walked through the pediatric ward, William noticed how Kate's face lit up when she saw the colorful drawings covering the walls. Children's artwork always had this effect on her. It reminded her of her own 3 children at home and how precious these young lives were. The hospital staff had initially been nervous about the impromptu visit, but seeing the genuine warmth radiating from both royals, they began to relax. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the head of pediatric oncology, led them through the ward. She had been working with children battling cancer for 15 years, but she had never seen anything quite like what was about to unfold. As they approached Emma's room, they could hear soft giggling coming from inside. Emma was playing with her younger brother Tom, who had been staying at the hospital to keep her company during treatment. Kate knocked gently on the doorframe, and when Emma looked up, her eyes grew as wide as saucers. For a moment, the room fell completely silent. Emma's mother, Sarah, dropped the book she had been reading and stood up so quickly that her chair nearly toppled over. "Hello, Emma," Kate said softly, stepping into the room with William close behind. "We received your letter and we simply had to come meet you." Emma's face transformed with pure joy, but she was too shocked to speak. Her little brother Tom, however, had no such hesitation. He ran straight to William and tugged on his suit jacket. "Are you really a prince?" Tom asked with the innocent directness that only young children possess. William knelt down to Tom's level, his face breaking into a genuine smile. "I am indeed, and you must be Tom. Your sister told us all about you in her letter." What happened next surprised everyone in the room. Instead of the formal, careful interaction that usually marked royal visits, Emma slowly climbed out of her bed and walked over to Kate. Without saying a word, she reached out and took Kate's hand, examining the simple rings on her fingers. "You're more beautiful than on TV," Emma whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Kate's eyes immediately filled with tears, but she blinked them back, not wanting to upset the brave little girl standing before her. Instead, she squeezed Emma's hand gently. "And you, my dear, are far braver than any princess I know," Kate replied, her voice slightly thick with emotion. William watched this exchange with a mixture of pride and deep emotion. He had seen Kate in countless situations over the years, meeting world leaders, attending state dinners, handling intense media scrutiny. But moments like these revealed the person he had fallen in love with all those years ago at university. Her ability to connect with people, especially children, was something that couldn't be taught or practiced. It came from somewhere deep within her heart. Emma's mother, Sarah, stood in the corner, tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter's dream come true. She had been Emma's rock through every difficult treatment, every scary test, every night when the pain seemed unbearable. Seeing her daughter's face light up with such pure happiness made every sleepless night worth it. The visit continued for over an hour, far longer than anyone had expected. William and Kate sat on Emma's bed, looking at her collection of get-well cards and listening to her stories about the other children in the ward. Emma told them about her friend Marcus, who was getting better and might go home soon, and about little Lucy, who had just started treatment and was scared. "Would you like to meet them too?" Emma asked hopefully. Kate and William exchanged a look. Their security team would probably have concerns about extending the visit, and their schedules for the rest of the day would need to be completely rearranged. But looking at Emma's hopeful face, there was really only one answer they could give. "We would love to meet your friends," William said without hesitation. As they prepared to visit the other children, Dr. Mitchell pulled them aside. "Your Royal Highnesses, I need you to know that what you're doing here today, this isn't just a visit for these children. This is hope. This is showing them that they matter, that their fight matters. Some of these kids haven't smiled in weeks." Kate nodded, understanding the weight of the doctor's words. These weren't just photo opportunities or public relations exercises. These were real children facing real battles, and sometimes the smallest gestures could provide the strength they needed to keep fighting. As they moved through the ward spread quickly among the staff and families. By the time they reached the common play area, a small group had gathered, not pushing or demanding attention, but simply hoping for a moment of connection with these two people who had taken time from their busy lives to be there. The afternoon was just beginning, but already it was clear that this would be a day that none of them would ever forget. The pediatric ward's play area buzzed with quiet excitement as Prince William and Princess Kate entered, followed by Emma, who had insisted on introducing them to her hospital friends. The room was decorated with bright murals of cartoon characters and had toys scattered across child-sized tables. But today it felt different, charged with an energy that made even the medical equipment seem less intimidating. Marcus, a 10-year-old boy with a shy smile, sat in the corner building with colorful blocks. His head was covered with a knitted hat that his grandmother had made, and he kept glancing up nervously as the small group approached. Emma rushed over to him immediately. "Marcus, these are my new friends I told you about," she announced proudly, as if she had known William and Kate for years rather than mere minutes. Marcus looked up at the prince and princess with wide eyes. Unlike Emma's immediate excitement, he seemed overwhelmed by the situation. Kate noticed his hesitation and quietly sat down on the floor beside him, not saying anything at first, just watching him work with his blocks. "What are you building?" she asked softly after a moment. "A castle," Marcus whispered so quietly that Kate had to lean in to hear him. "But it keeps falling down." William joined them on the floor, his expensive suit forgotten as he examined Marcus's creation. "You know, I've lived in a few castles, and I can tell you a secret. They all need really strong foundations." Marcus's eyes lit up with interest. "Really? You live in a real castle?" "I do," William nodded seriously. "And the most important thing about any castle isn't how tall it is or how many towers it has. It's how strong the bottom part is. Would you like me to help you make yours stronger?" For the next 20 minutes, the future King of England sat on a hospital floor, carefully helping a young cancer patient build a block castle. Kate watched them work together, her heart swelling with pride at her husband's natural way with children. This was the William that most people never got to see, not the formal prince at state occasions, but the father who built pillow forts with their own children and never minded getting his clothes dirty. Their peaceful building session was interrupted by a small commotion from across the room. 5-year-old Lucy, the newest patient Emma had mentioned, was crying softly while a nurse tried to coax her to take her medication. Her parents stood nearby, looking helpless and exhausted. Kate excused herself and walked over to the little girl. Lucy had lost most of her hair from treatment, and she clutched a worn teddy bear against her chest. When she saw Kate approaching, she buried her face in her mother's shoulder. "Lucy doesn't like the medicine," her mother Helen explained apologetically. "It tastes awful, and she's been through so much already." Kate knelt down beside Lucy's chair and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Hello, Lucy, I'm Kate. Is that your special teddy bear?" Lucy peeked out from her mother's shoulder, curious despite her tears. She nodded slowly. "He's very handsome," Kate continued. "What's his name?" "Mr. Buttons," Lucy whispered, holding the bear a little tighter. "Mr. Buttons looks very brave. I bet he's been taking good care of you." Kate reached into her purse and pulled out a small packet of stickers, something she had started carrying after becoming a mother herself. "Would you like to give Mr. Buttons some special stickers? Maybe they could help him be even braver." Lucy's tears slowed as she examined the colorful stickers Kate offered. They were simple designs, stars, hearts, and smiley faces. But to a scared 5-year-old, they might as well have been precious jewels. "Can I put them on him?" Lucy asked, her voice still shaky but curious. "Of course you can. And you know what? After Mr. Buttons gets his brave stickers, maybe he could help you take your medicine. Sometimes when we have to do something difficult, it helps to have a brave friend with us. As Lucy began carefully placing stickers on her teddy bear, her parents watched in amazement. Their daughter had been refusing medication for 3 days, and yet here she was, completely absorbed in decorating her toy while chatting quietly with Princess Kate. Meanwhile, William had moved on from Castle Building to meet some of the other children. 12-year-old James was in a wheelchair recovering from surgery, but his spirit was clearly unbroken. He had been watching William help Marcus with intense interest. "Sir, is it true that you fly helicopters?" James asked as William approached. "I do indeed," William smiled. "For many years I flew air ambulances. Some of the most important work I've ever done." James's face lit up. "I want to be a pilot when I grow up. My dad says maybe I can't because of my legs, but I think I still could, right?" William's expression grew serious and he pulled up a chair to sit at James's eye level. "James, let me tell you something very important. Some of the best pilots I know have had to overcome challenges that others haven't. What makes a great pilot isn't having perfect legs or perfect anything else. It's having courage, determination, and the ability to stay calm when things get difficult. From what I can see, you already have all of those qualities." The conversation continued for several minutes, with William sharing stories about his flying experiences and James asking dozens of questions about different types of aircraft. Other children began to gather around, drawn by the animated discussion. Dr. Mitchell watched from the doorway, making notes about each child's response to the visit. In her years of experience, she had seen how powerful these moments of normalcy and connection could be for young patients. But she had never witnessed anything quite like what was happening today. Emma had convinced Kate to braid her hair, and they sat together on a small couch while Emma chattered about her favorite books and movies. Kate listened intently to every word, asking questions and sharing her own childhood memories. When Emma mentioned that she missed her pet cat Whiskers, Kate pulled out her phone to show pictures of their family dog, Orla. "She's beautiful," Emma breathed, studying the photos carefully. "Do you think she would like me?" "I think she would love you," Kate replied honestly. "Maybe someday when you're feeling better you could come visit us and meet her." The invitation was spontaneous, not something that had been planned or cleared with anyone. But seeing Emma's face light up with hope and excitement, Kate knew it was exactly the right thing to say. As the afternoon progressed, the formal barriers that usually surrounded royal visits seemed to dissolve completely. William was on the floor again, this time helping a group of children work on a jigsaw puzzle, while Kate had somehow become involved in an elaborate tea party with 3 young girls and their collection of stuffed animals. The parents and hospital staff watched in amazement as their children laughed and played, with an ease they hadn't shown in weeks or months. These weren't just any visitors. These were 2 of the most famous people in the world, and yet they seemed completely at home, sitting on hospital floors and engaging in the simple pleasures that brought joy to sick children. But perhaps most remarkable of all was watching William and Kate themselves. Away from the cameras and formal protocols, they were simply 2 people who genuinely cared about the children they were meeting. Their smiles were real, their laughter was genuine, and their tears, which came more than once, were born from authentic emotion. The hospital cafeteria had never hosted such unusual lunch guests. William and Kate sat at a simple plastic table, sharing sandwiches and juice boxes with Emma, Marcus, James, and Lucy, the children who were well enough to leave their rooms for a short while. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the smell of institutional food filled the air, but the atmosphere was far from dreary. Emma had appointed herself as the official host, making sure everyone had napkins and explaining the hospital's meal schedule to her royal guests with the seriousness of a seasoned tour guide. "On Tuesdays we get pizza, but it's not very good pizza," she informed them solemnly. "Thursday is fish and chips day, which is much better." Kate listened to this information as if it were the most important briefing she had ever received. "That's very good to know, Emma. What about dessert? Do they have anything special?" "Sometimes there's jelly," Marcus chimed in, speaking more freely now than he had all morning. "But the best dessert is when someone brings homemade biscuits from outside." William leaned forward conspiratorially. "I happen to know someone who makes excellent biscuits. Perhaps we could arrange for some to be delivered here sometime soon." The children's eyes grew wide at this possibility. It was such a simple thing, the promise of homemade biscuits. But in the sterile environment of the hospital, Small pleasures took on enormous significance. Lucy, still clutching her newly decorated Mr. Buttons, had been quietly eating her lunch while staying close to Kate's side. During their morning together, she had gradually warmed up to both royals, but she seemed particularly drawn to Kate's gentle manner and soft voice. "Kate," Lucy said suddenly, tugging on the princess's sleeve, "why are you so nice to us?" The question was innocent, but it caught Kate off guard. She set down her juice box and considered her answer carefully, aware that several little faces were now looking at her expectantly. "Because you're all very special people," she said finally, "and everyone deserves to have someone care about them, especially when they're going through difficult things. But you don't even know us," James pointed out, with the logical thinking of a 12-year-old. William joined the conversation. "James, that's true. We didn't know you before today. But sometimes the most important connections happen quickly. When we meet people who are brave and kind, like all of you, we can't help but care about them." Emma nodded wisely, as if this made perfect sense to her. "It's like when you read a book and you start loving the characters right away, even though they're not real." "Exactly," Kate smiled. "Except you are all very real and very brave and very special." Their lunch was interrupted when Dr. Mitchell appeared at their table, looking slightly apologetic. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's a young man upstairs who's been asking if he might be able to meet you both. He's 15 and he's been in the hospital for several weeks. He was too shy to come down earlier." William and Kate exchanged glances. Their security team had been remarkably patient with the extended visit, but they knew that every additional interaction meant more complications for everyone involved. However, the decision was easy. "Of course," Kate said immediately. "We'd be happy to meet him." 10 minutes later, they were introduced to David, a teenager who looked much younger than his 15 years due to his illness. He was sitting up in bed, and his room was filled with get-well cards from his school friends and football posters covering every available wall space. Unlike the younger children, David was acutely aware of who his visitors were, and he seemed almost overwhelmed by their presence. His mother, Patricia, hovered nearby, clearly nervous about the whole situation. "David loves football," his mother explained, trying to fill the silence. "He plays midfielder for his school team, or he did before." She trailed off, not wanting to mention his illness. William noticed the Manchester United scarf hanging on David's bedside table. "United fan, are you? That's brave, given how they've been playing lately." David's face broke into a grin despite his nervousness. "They're still the best team in the league, sir. Just having a rough patch." "I admire your loyalty," William laughed. "I'm more of an Aston Villa supporter myself, but I respect dedication when I see it." The conversation about football seemed to relax David considerably, and soon he was telling William about his position on the school team and his, hopes of trying out for a regional youth league. When he was well enough, Kate listened to their exchange while examining the numerous cards and letters covering David's walls. Many were from classmates, but others appeared to be from people she didn't recognize. "David, you have so many cards," she observed. "You must have a lot of friends." David's mother, Patricia, spoke up. "Actually, Your Royal Highness, many of those are from strangers." After David's story appeared in the local newspaper, people started sending letters and cards from all over the country. Some are from other young people who have been through similar experiences. Kate moved closer to read some of the messages. They were filled with encouragement, shared experiences, and simple expressions of support from people who had never met David but felt compelled to reach out to him. "This is incredible," Kate said softly. "David, do you realize how many people are thinking about you and wishing you well?" David nodded, looking slightly embarrassed but also pleased. "Mom reads them to me when I'm having a bad day. It helps to know that other people understand what it's like." William was struck by the teenager's maturity. Despite his youth and his illness, David seemed to possess a wisdom about human connection that many adults never developed. "David, can I ask you something?" William said, pulling up a chair. "What would you tell someone else your age who was just starting treatment and feeling scared?" David thought for a moment before answering. "I'd tell them that it's okay to be scared because it is scary. But I'd also tell them that they're stronger than they think they are, and that there are people who care about them, even if they don't know it yet." The simple profundity of his answer left both William and Kate momentarily speechless. Here was a 15-year-old boy who had spent weeks battling a serious illness, and yet his first instinct was to offer comfort and encouragement to others who might face similar challenges. Kate felt tears gathering in her eyes again, but this time she didn't try to hide them. "David, that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard anyone say." Patricia watched her son with obvious pride. She had seen him struggle through painful treatments and difficult days, but she had also watched him develop a compassion and strength that amazed her. As their visit with David continued, other families in nearby rooms began to gather quietly in the hallway. Word had spread throughout the hospital that the prince and princess were visiting, and while no one wanted to intrude, there was a palpable sense of hope and excitement in the air. Dr. Mitchell appeared again, this time with a gentle suggestion. "Your Royal Highnesses, I know this wasn't planned, but there are several families in the hall who would be so grateful for even a brief moment with you. I understand if that's not possible, but—" William looked at his watch, then at Kate. They had already stayed far longer than originally intended, and their evening commitments would need to be rearranged. But looking at the hopeful faces gathered in the corridor, there was really only one choice they could make. "Of course," Kate said simply. "We have time." The hospital corridor had transformed into an impromptu receiving line, but nothing about it felt formal or staged. Families stood patiently with their children, some in wheelchairs, others carrying IV poles, all of them radiating a quiet hope that spoke volumes about the power of human connection during difficult times. William and Kate moved slowly from family to family, taking genuine time with each person they met. There was 8-year-old Sophie, who had been born with a rare heart condition and had undergone multiple surgeries. She presented Kate with a drawing she had made during her long hospital stay, a colorful picture of a princess with a crown surrounded by hearts. "This is beautiful." "Sophie," Kate said, kneeling down to the little girl's level. "May I keep it?" Sophie nodded eagerly, her face glowing with pride. "It's you," she explained. "I drew it because Mummy said you help people, and that's what princesses do in stories." Kate carefully folded the drawing and placed it in her purse. "This is going to have a very special place in my home, Sophie. Thank you for such a wonderful gift." Sophie's mother, Rachel, watched the exchange with tears in her eyes. "She's been working on that drawing for 3 days, she whispered to Kate. "She was so excited when she heard you might be coming." "She's incredibly talented," Kate replied sincerely, "and clearly very thoughtful. You should be very proud." As they moved along, they met the Martinez family, parents Maria and Carlos with their twin sons, Alex and Diego, both 7 years old. Alex was receiving treatment for a brain tumor, while his healthy brother Diego had barely left his side throughout the ordeal. William was particularly drawn to Diego, recognizing something familiar in the boy's protective stance near his brother. "Diego, you're being a very good brother," William observed. Diego looked up at him seriously. "Alex gets scared sometimes, so I stay with him. That's what brothers do." The simple statement hit William with unexpected force. He thought of his own brother Harry, of their childhood bond, of the way they had supported each other through their mother's death and the challenges that followed. Here was a 7-year-old boy demonstrating the same instinctive loyalty and love. "You're absolutely right," William said, his voice slightly thick with emotion. "That is exactly what brothers do." Alex, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. "Diego teaches me card games when I can't sleep." "Do you know any card games?" William smiled. "I know quite a few. My children taught me one called Snap. That's particularly good for times when you can't sleep. Would you like me to show you?" The next 20 minutes were spent in an impromptu card game lesson, with William sitting cross-legged on the hospital floor, teaching the twins and several other children the finer points of Snap. Kate joined them, and soon there was a circle of children and parents gathered around, everyone laughing as cards flew and voices shouted "Snap." At crucial moments, Dr. Mitchell watched from the nurse's station, making a mental note to add this scene to her report. She had seen many celebrity visits over the years, but most followed a predictable pattern: brief interactions, photo opportunities, and carefully managed schedules. What was happening today was entirely different. These two people seemed genuinely reluctant to leave, finding reasons to extend every conversation and create new connections. The afternoon continued with a visit to the neonatal intensive care unit, where they met the tiniest patients in the hospital, Here the interactions were necessarily quieter and more subdued, but no less meaningful. They spoke with exhausted parents who had been maintaining bedside vigils for weeks, offering words of encouragement and simply being present during one of the most frightening times in these families' lives. Sarah Jenkins had been at her premature daughter's bedside for 6 weeks, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair and living on hospital cafeteria food and the kindness of strangers. When Kate sat beside her and simply asked, "How are you holding up?" Sarah found herself sharing fears and hopes she had barely been able to voice to her own family. "Some days I wonder if I'm strong enough for this," Sarah admitted quietly, watching her tiny daughter's chest rise and fall with the help of medical equipment. "Emily is so small and she's been fighting so hard for so long." Kate reached over and gently squeezed Sarah's hand. "The fact that you're here day after day shows exactly how strong you are. Emily is lucky to have a mother who loves her so completely. Do you ever worry that you're not doing enough for your children?" Sarah asked suddenly, then immediately looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry, that was too personal." "Don't apologize," Kate said softly. "And yes, I worry about that constantly. I think every parent does. But what I've learned is that being present, really present, is often the most important thing we can give them." Their conversation was interrupted when Emily's monitor began beeping, indicating she was waking up. Sarah immediately moved to her daughter's incubator, speaking in soothing tones and gently touching the baby's tiny hand through the access port. Kate watched this interaction with deep respect. Here was a mother pouring all of her love and strength into caring for her vulnerable child, day after day, without recognition or applause. It was a reminder that real heroism often happened in quiet moments, witnessed only by those who mattered most. William had been speaking with another father, Mark, whose son had been born 3 months premature. Mark had been commuting between the hospital and his job, trying to support his family while being present for his son's care. "The hardest part," Mark confided, "is feeling helpless. There's nothing I can do to fix this or make it better. I can only wait and hope." William nodded, understanding the frustration of being unable to protect someone you love from suffering. "But you're not helpless, Mark. Your son knows you're here. He knows he's loved. That matters more than you might realize." As the afternoon wore on, they visited the adolescent ward, where they met teenagers dealing with various long-term illnesses. These young people presented different challenges. They were old enough to understand the seriousness of their conditions, but still young enough to feel frightened and uncertain about their futures. 16-year-old Aisha had been battling cystic fibrosis since childhood, and she spoke with remarkable maturity about her daily treatments and the uncertainty of her prognosis. But when Kate asked about her dreams for the future, Aisha's face lit up with the enthusiasm of any teenager. "I want to study marine biology," she said eagerly. "I've always been fascinated by ocean life, especially coral reefs. I know my condition makes some career paths difficult, but I think I could contribute to marine conservation research." Kate was struck by Aisha's determination to focus on possibilities rather than limitations. "That sounds like incredibly important work. The world needs people who are passionate about protecting our oceans. Do you think so?" Aisha asked, clearly hungry for encouragement from someone she admired. "I absolutely do," Kate replied firmly. "And I think your personal experience with fighting challenges will make you an even more dedicated researcher." By late afternoon, William and Kate had spent nearly 7 hours in the hospital, far longer than anyone had expected when they arrived that morning. They had met dozens of families, learned countless names, and heard stories that would stay with them forever. But perhaps most remarkably, they had also given something precious to every person they encountered: their full attention, their genuine care, and their authentic presence during some of the most difficult moments these families were facing. As the sun began to set outside the hospital windows, casting long shadows across the corridors, William and Kate found themselves reluctantly preparing to leave. What had begun as a simple visit to fulfill one little girl's wish had evolved into something much deeper and more meaningful than anyone could have anticipated. Emma had been their constant companion throughout the day, proudly introducing them to every doctor, nurse, and fellow patient she encountered. Now, as the reality of their departure set in, her brave facade began to crack slightly. She stood in the doorway of her room, still wearing the special stickers Kate had given her, trying to be strong but clearly struggling with the approaching goodbye. Kate noticed the change in Emma's demeanor immediately. She knelt down beside the 8-year-old, speaking in the gentle tone that had become familiar to everyone in the ward throughout the day. "Emma, this has been one of the most special days William and I have had in a very long time," Kate said softly. "Meeting you and all of your friends has been a gift to us." Emma looked down at her feet, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what if I forget what you look like? What if I forget today happened?" The question revealed a fear that went deeper than simple sadness about saying goodbye. For a child facing uncertain health challenges, the idea of forgetting precious moments carried extra weight. William, who had been speaking quietly with Emma's parents nearby, overheard and joined them. He pulled his phone from his pocket and showed Emma the screen. "Emma, would you like to take a picture together? That way, whenever you want to remember today, you can look at it and see all of us together." Emma's face brightened immediately. "Really? Can we do one with everyone?" What followed was perhaps the most unconventional royal photo session ever conducted. Rather than formal portraits with professional photographers, it was a spontaneous gathering of patients, families, and staff, all crowded together in the hospital corridor, taking pictures with phones and tablets held at various angles. Marcus squeezed in next to William, still clutching the castle they had built together. Lucy insisted on holding Mr. Buttons up so he could be in the picture too. David had come down from his room in his wheelchair, positioned prominently in the front row with his Manchester United scarf draped over his shoulders. James positioned himself next to Kate, and at the last moment before the photo, he whispered something in her ear that made her laugh genuinely, the sound echoing through the corridor and causing everyone else to smile even brighter. But it was Dr. Mitchell who captured the most telling moment. As the group was arranging themselves for another photo, she noticed William and Kate in the background, not posing or preparing for pictures, but simply watching the children with expressions of such genuine affection and concern that it took her breath away. In 30 years of working in pediatric medicine, she would later tell her colleagues, "I have never seen anything like the connection those two made with our patients today. It wasn't about their titles or their fame. They genuinely cared about every single child they met." As the informal photo session continued, other families began gathering their courage to ask for pictures as well. Sarah Jenkins from the NICU brought little Emily, now stable enough for a brief trip outside her unit. The tiny baby, swaddled in hospital blankets, slept peacefully in her mother's arms as Kate gently touched her small hand. "She's beautiful, Sarah," Kate said, her voice filled with the reverence that parents everywhere recognize when someone truly sees their child. "And she's clearly a fighter, just like her mother." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. "This morning I was feeling so alone and scared. Tonight I feel like Emily and I have an entire community supporting us." The teenagers from the adolescent ward had formed their own group, with Aisha organizing everyone for what she called the coolest selfie ever. William and Kate found themselves surrounded by young people who had temporarily forgotten about their illnesses and treatments, laughing and joking like any group of teenagers might. "This is going straight to my social media," announced 17-year-old Ben, who was recovering from surgery. "My friends at school will never believe this actually happened. Make sure you tag us," William joked, earning surprised laughter from the group. It was a reminder that beneath the formal titles and royal protocols, he was also a person who understood the language of young people. As the evening progressed, the emotional weight of the day began to show on everyone involved. Kate found herself having increasingly difficult conversations with parents who had been carrying enormous burdens for months or years. Patricia, David's mother, pulled Kate aside as they were preparing to leave. "I need you to know what today meant to my son," she said quietly. "David has been so discouraged lately. He's worried that his illness means he'll never have a normal life, never achieve his dreams. But seeing you and William here, taking time to really listen to him and treat him like his thoughts and plans matter, it's given him hope again." Kate felt the full weight of responsibility that came with their unique position. "Patricia, David is an extraordinary young man. His illness doesn't define him or limit what he can achieve. I hope he remembers that." "He will now," Patricia replied simply, "because two people he admires told him so." Meanwhile, William was having his own emotional conversation with the Martinez family. Carlos, the father of the twins, struggled to find words to express his gratitude. "My wife and I, We've been so focused on Alex's treatment that we haven't paid enough attention to Diego, he admitted. But watching you with him today, seeing how you recognized what a good brother he's being, it reminded us that both of our sons need support right now. William nodded, thinking of his own children at home. Being a sibling to someone who's going through a difficult time is its own kind of challenge. Diego is showing incredible strength and love. Don't forget to tell him that. As they finally began making their rounds to say individual goodbyes, the emotional intensity of the day became almost overwhelming. Each farewell carried its own weight. The uncertainty of these children's futures, the strength of the family supporting them, and the profound impact that simple human connection could have during the darkest times. Emma saved her goodbye for last, and when the moment came, she surprised everyone by presenting Kate with a small handmade bracelet. It was made from colorful beads and elastic string, the kind of craft project that hospital volunteers often brought to keep young patients occupied during long treatment days. I made this during art therapy yesterday, Emma explained, carefully placing it on Kate's wrist. The red beads are for courage, the blue ones are for hope, and the yellow ones are for happiness. I want you to wear it and remember us. Kate looked down at the simple bracelet, knowing it would become one of her most treasured possessions. Emma, this is beautiful. And I promise you I will wear this and think of you and all of your friends every single day. The goodbye that followed was unlike anything that usually happened at royal engagements. Instead of formal handshakes and polite words, there were genuine hugs, whispered promises to stay in touch, and tears that no one tried to hide. As William and Kate finally walked toward the hospital exit, accompanied by their security detail, they could hear the voices of the children calling out from windows and doorways, not formal titles or royal acknowledgments, but simple words of affection and gratitude. Thank you, Kate. Goodbye, William. Come back soon. The voices followed them all the way to their car, a reminder that they were leaving behind not just patients in a hospital, but friends they had made in the space of a single, extraordinary day. The car ride back to Kensington Palace was unusually quiet. William and Kate sat side by side, both lost in their own thoughts about the extraordinary day they had just experienced. Kate absently fingered the colorful beaded bracelet Emma had given her, while William stared out the window at the London streets, seeing them through different eyes than he had that morning. Their security officer, Detective Inspector Sarah Walsh, who had been with them for several years and had witnessed countless royal engagements, finally broke the silence. Your Royal Highnesses, she said carefully, in all my years of royal protection duty, I've never seen anything quite like what happened today. The impact you had on those families was remarkable. Kate looked up from Emma's bracelet. Sarah, we didn't do anything extraordinary. We just spent time with some incredible children and their families. With respect, ma'am, that's exactly what made it extraordinary, Sarah replied. Those families will remember this day for the rest of their lives. She was right, though none of them could have predicted just how far the ripples of that single day would spread. Within hours of their departure, social media began buzzing with posts from hospital staff and families. Dr. Mitchell had posted a simple message on the hospital's official account. Today we witnessed something beautiful. Two people who chose to see beyond titles and protocols to connect with our patients as human beings. Our children are still talking about the prince and princess who sat on floors, played card games, and listened to their dreams. The post was shared thousands of times within the first hour. But more importantly, it inspired other stories to emerge. Parents from around the country began sharing their own experiences with sick children, creating an online community of support that had started with Emma's simple letter and William and Kate's decision to respond personally. Emma's mother, Sarah, had posted a single photo, Emma wearing her special stickers, beaming as she showed off the castle she and Marcus had built with William. The caption read, "My brave girl met her heroes today, but I think they met theirs too." That image would eventually be seen by millions of people around the world, but its most important audience was much smaller. Other families facing similar challenges who saw hope and dignity reflected in Emma's radiant smile. Back at the palace, William and Kate found themselves unable to simply return to their evening routine. They sat in their private sitting room, sharing a quiet dinner while continuing to process the day's experiences. "I keep thinking about what David said," William remarked, referring to the 15-year-old's wise words about supporting others who were scared. He's facing something terrifying, and his first instinct is to think about how he can help someone else. Kate nodded, still moved by the memory. And Aisha, talking about her dreams of marine biology as if her illness was just one factor to consider, not a barrier to everything she wants to achieve. They talked late into the evening about each child they had met, about the strength of the families, and about the dedicated medical staff who worked tirelessly to provide not just treatment, but hope and dignity to their young patients. But perhaps most significantly, they began talking about what came next. "We can't just go back to business as usual after today," Kate said quietly. "Those children, those families, they've changed something in me." William reached over and took her hand, noting that she was still wearing Emma's bracelet and probably would be for days to come. "I feel the same way. This wasn't just a visit. It was a reminder of what really matters." Their conversation continued past midnight, as they began planning ways to maintain connections with the families they had met, and to expand their support for pediatric healthcare more broadly. By morning, they had outlined ideas for regular, unannounced visits to children's hospitals, a fund to support families during extended hospital stays, and a scholarship program for young people like Aisha, whose medical challenges shouldn't limit their educational dreams. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, the impact of their visit continued to unfold in ways both large and small. Emma had indeed worn her special stickers to bed, refusing to let the nurses remove them even for her bath. She had told everyone who would listen about her new friends Kate and William, and about how they were going to help make sure Mr. Buttons got brave stickers too. Marcus had placed his block castle on his bedside table where he could see it from his bed. When other children asked about it, he would explain with pride that he had built it with a real prince, and that the prince had taught him about foundations being the most important part. David had written a long entry in the journal his therapist had encouraged him to keep. "Today I met two people who made me feel like my dreams still matter," he wrote. "They didn't treat me like a sick kid. They treated me like someone with important things to say and important things to do when I get better." Lucy had fallen asleep clutching Mr. Buttons with his new collection of brave stickers, and for the first time in weeks, she had taken her medication without resistance. When her mother asked why it was easier today, Lucy had simply said, "Mr. Buttons is braver now, so I can be braver too." The teenagers in the adolescent ward had created a group chat called Royal Squad, where they shared encouragement and updates about their treatments. Aisha had already begun researching marine biology programs at universities known for their accessibility support, feeling for the first time that her medical condition didn't have to derail her dreams. But perhaps the most significant impact was on the hospital staff themselves. Nurses, doctors, and support workers who had witnessed the day's events found themselves approaching their work with renewed energy and purpose. They had been reminded of the profound difference that genuine human connection could make in the healing process. Dr. Mitchell spent her evening writing a detailed report about the visit, not for administrative purposes, but because she wanted to document what she had witnessed. "Today I saw the power of authentic compassion," she wrote. Two people who could have chosen to maintain distance and formality instead chose to see each child as an individual worthy of their time and attention. The healing that happened today went far beyond any medical treatment we could provide. 3 weeks later, William and Kate received a package with no return address. Inside was a collection of letters, drawings, and photos from the children they had met. Emma had written in her careful handwriting, "Dear Kate and William, thank you for being my friends. I am getting stronger every day, and I think about our castle and our card games when I feel scared. Love, Emma. P.S. Mr. Buttons says thank you for the brave stickers." Marcus had included a photo of a much more elaborate castle he had built, with a note, "I remembered what you said about foundations. This one is very strong." David had sent a newspaper clipping about a young footballer who had returned to play after a serious illness, with a note, "This could be me someday. Thank you for helping me believe that." Aisha had included information about a marine biology camp she was planning to attend the following summer, writing, "My doctors say I'm well enough to participate. I can't wait to start working toward my dreams." But it was the final item in the package that moved them most deeply. It was a group photo taken by one of the hospital volunteers, showing all the children they had met gathered together in the hospital's play area. They were smiling and laughing, and in the center of the group sat the block castle that William and Marcus had built together. On the back of the photo, someone, possibly Dr. Mitchell, had written, "The best foundation is love." Kate carefully placed the photo on her desk, next to the drawing Sophie had made of a princess surrounded by hearts. Every morning, when she sat down to review her schedule and correspondence, she would see these reminders of what truly mattered. Emma's bracelet remained on her wrist, a daily reminder that sometimes the most important work happened not in grand gestures or formal ceremonies, but in quiet moments of human connection, sitting on hospital floors playing card games, and listening to the dreams of brave children who had so much to teach the world about courage, hope, and the healing power of love. The day that had begun with one little girl's letter had created ripples that would continue to spread for years to come, touching countless lives and reminding everyone involved that compassion shared is compassion multiplied.